Hey, everybody. Welcome to UGASports Rumors versus Facts. My name is Rodney Bolsey. I'm joined by Jed May, the senior recruiting writer at the University of Georgia. I try to come up with a new title for him every week. Basically, the grand poobah of Georgia recruiting writing. Also, a team writer at UGASports. So when we need to talk about team stuff, we'll talk about team stuff. But when we need to talk about recruiting, we get Jed on here and we talk about recruiting because today was a big recruiting day for the University of Georgia. 5-star running back, number one running back, Kemon Spell out of Pennsylvania, committed to the University of Georgia after a big recruiting weekend. And Jed, I know you don't pay attention to any of the stupid crap that I tweet, but I did put out earlier, I guess it was Sunday. I said, look, this is turning into one of those weekends where we look back and say, hey, that was the weekend that moved the needle for Georgia. This kid committed right after. This kid committed 2 weeks later. This kid committed 3 months later. This kid put Georgia as his leader and kind of just, that Georgia never looked back. This just had the feel of one of those weekends. And crazy with all the snow and all the uncertainty of this weekend, turned out to be a huge weekend, and it's already paying dividends. The University of Georgia got a commitment from the number one running back in the nation, a kid who was previously committed to Penn State. And there are a lot of people saying he's going back to Penn State. Matter of fact, I think there were a couple predictions that he was going to go back to Penn State. But the Bulldogs got him on campus a day early, and all of a sudden, Kemon Spell is now committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. Tell what the hell happened?
Yeah, I mean, he, like you said, he got to campus Thursday. So, I mean, you're looking at basically, 48, between 48 and 72 hours on campus, assuming he was going to leave Sunday. So, it turns into almost an official visit at that point, and Friday has evolved into the shadow of player days, and Nate Frazier was his host, so he spends the day shadowing Nate Frazier, Saturdays with the coaches, and I'm sure they went to the basketball game, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, like you said, because I was looking back at the timeline today, Georgia offers in October, and it's like, yeah, it's a big offer, I want to visit. Then a few days after that, Penn State fires James Franklin, and he ends up decommitting. And so the timing on that front worked out pretty good for Georgia. And then he visits for the Charlotte game, and Georgia seemed like it had the momentum. And then, yeah, like you said, it seemed like depending on where you look, he was saying Georgia was the leader, but there's also some smoke around Penn State. And this visit is really what it obviously pushed Georgia over the edge. I wasn't expecting a commitment to come today. I thought Georgia was in a good spot in his recruitment overall, but to go ahead and pull the trigger was a little bit surprising, but that just shows you Georgia knocked it out of the park. And he's a guy that, and if you look at prospects Georgia needed in this class, not necessarily the best, although he's really, really good, as anyone who would think has watched this huddle could tell you. Like, Georgia needs a stud running back in this class, because you look at who's leaving. Nate Frazier is probably gone after 2026. There's a decent chance Chauncey Bowens is gone after 2026. Dante Dowdell's got to be gone. So the running back room is a lot of unproven behind them. So to get a guy, and Noah Parker's really good too. I think Kemon Spell is a elite guy who will make a difference from day one he steps on campus. And credit to Josh Crawford, Kirby Smart, all the staffers who got this done. And now the work begins to hold off other schools for the next 10 months or 10 months and change till signing day. But this is a absolutely huge recruitment, and one Georgia needed in a bad way in this particular class at this particular position.
Georgia not exactly torn it up in the running back recruiting the last 2 years. They took one back both years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Bo Walker and Jay Lamar.
Mm-hmm. From high school, yeah.
From high school, right. Now, of course, they brought in transfers, with Josh McCray and Dante Dowdell, but they've been involved in some very high-profile recruiting battles those last 2 years. And this is like the first time that it feels like they won early, because there's a couple guys that, they were – I remember, go back to the Justice Haynes thing. It feels like it's been a while since they've really knocked one out of the park. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Bo Walker's a stud. That kid is an absolute – he's a winner. Jay Lamar is – isn't he out of Colquitt County?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can give me any kid out of Colquitt. That is a football player. He's just an absolute beast. So my point is, you've done well, but you need you need to sign at least 2 running backs a year. They just take such a beating. And we knew that they would probably go to the transfer portal because they only got one the last 2 years. But now all of a sudden you've got, the number 1 running back in the nation pulling him down out of Pennsylvania, a guy who he puts me in mind of DeAndre Swift. I just, kind of size-wise, speed. I don't know. I'm with you. When you point out that this was one they absolutely needed, you need to be RBU. And I know a lot of people, and like JC from SD in here says, I can't wait for Texas or Ohio State to build that relationship and then come in the day before signing day with 3 times the offer. The number 1 response I got consistently from everybody when we put this out was, that's great. Does he actually sign? That's great. Does he actually sign? That's great. Does he actually sign? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'll tell you this, 80+% of guys who commit wind up signing. Now, we've seen some high-profile guys switch at the last second. You saw the Dylan Raiolas. You saw the Jared Curtises. Sometimes you lose a guy at the last second. You expect Justice Terry. He commits, then he's decommitted, then you think you're going to get him, and he goes to Texas. I know it's frustrating. But, again, I would rather the kid be committed to Georgia if I'm a Georgia fan than him to not be. So call it a promissory note, call it a non-binding understanding, but it's damn sure better than him not being committed at all. So to me, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'd be bouncing off the damn walls that the number 1 running back says, hey, I'm coming to you. And I know that, what was it, the Derek Cooper thing lasted a few days and didn't work out. It beats the alternative of him not being committed at all and going back to Penn State.
And it's so, and I'm going a little bit of a rant because you see this, we've seen this so much on the board lately where like the fan base just kind of feels like they're so down on their luck. And like you said, it's oh, well, big deal. Like even all the stuff from Steve this weekend where, yeah, Jordan's in good shape with Kemon Spell and Brock Williams and all these guys. And there's just such a frustrated feeling out there. And I get it. But like, if you can't be excited about this kid joining your class, then you might as well just give up follow recruiting. And like there's plenty of time to worry about, is he going to sign? Is he going to do this? If your first thought is when this kid commits isn't, this kid's one of the best players in the country and I'm glad he's on my team or joining my program, then you might not be cut out to follow recruiting at the moment. I mean, it is what it is because Georgia still recruits at a very high level. They had 6 of the top 100 players in the country in this in the last Rivals rankings. They had 16 players in the top 100. Only USC and Notre Dame had more. So like, it's not like Georgia is a school where you think of, when you see Georgia offer a kid who's committed to like Kansas State, and you're like, uh-oh, like if you're Kansas State, this is trouble because now the big boys are coming in. Or if you're Purdue. Oh man, okay. If you're Purdue and Georgia and Ohio State and Alabama start circling, then you're in trouble. You're still Georgia. You're still recruiting at a very high level at a lot of positions. Like, be excited. This is a great player at a position of need. Be excited. Don't be such a down. So don't be a Debbie Downer and oh well, it's not going to matter. Like, yeah, he might flip later, but that you could say that about any kid who commits at any time. Be excited about a guy that's joining your program and
well, look, if you're going to get down about this, if you're going to bitch and moan about the fact that this kid might flip later, then don't ever come to me talking about, hey, that kid that committed to Oregon or Texas, because we had a story about an Oregon commit, we had a story about a Miami commit. There's been the wide receiver that we wrote about the other day has been committed to Miami for a year. Then shut up. Don't get excited about flipping him away, because we all get excited when Georgia flips somebody, but then when it happens to us, it's like, God damn it, these kids suck. I'm like, oh. It's okay when they flip to you. It's okay if KJ Bolden, or whoever leaves leaves FSU on signing day. That shit's fine. But if he does it, Jared Curtis does it to you, then these kids suck. It's like, dude.
And I'm not saying you got to
JC, don't get me wrong. I love JC. He's a good commenter on here. He says only 73% of our commits signed this year. That's not counting all the kids that 2 of which Georgia dropped. They moved on. And he says 10 commits out of 28. you're not looking at the other. I mean, we have kids reach out to us and say, "Hey, I'm ready to commit," and we reach out to Jordan. Jordan's like, "Well, we're not taking him."
Yeah, and
So
I
my
think
point is, you can do the math that way, but if you look at the last 5 years, it's like 84% of guys who commit to Georgia do not change. So to me, give me an 80% chance that you can sign Kemon Spell. Hell, even if it's 73, which I disagree with that rationale there, give me a 73% chance of signing the number one running back in the nation to an area of need. And people are crapping on. You had the story yesterday about Jaden Wade. Jaden Wade, number one quarterback, class of 2028, might be the class of 2027 if something changes. You can be, I understand not getting excited about it, but the point is, I know you want to insulate yourself from being hurt later on, and I get it, it's practical, but the vast majority of these guys do stick. So I'm with you. Get excited. Sorry, my lance is over.
Well, and I'm not saying people have to go out and everybody's got to order their Kemon Spell jerseys now and whatever. But like again, like you said, it's better to have him committed than not, right? I mean, at this point, would you rather have him committed or not? And I think if you look at who, Penn State obviously got his commitment the first time, Georgia's got it now, and I know Notre Dame has kind of really been in this hard for a while. Those are three schools that aren't known to be the big NIL schools out on the trail. So, I mean, if this kid was all about money, then you would have seen a lot of money.
Be going to Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, you'd have seen a lot of. I mean, if we're talking about the northern schools, I mean, it doesn't seem like Ohio State was in super deep. I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. But like, I mean, this is a guy that went to three schools, or at his not necessarily finalists, but three schools who were involved very deep, who have a lot of other things to offer besides just. And I'm sure Georgia, that you got to pay up for a guy like this. I'm not saying Georgia's not in it, but
Georgia's in it. Georgia's not getting outspent here. This is not a.
This is a kid you pay up for at this position in this class with this level of talent, and it's something Georgia fans should be excited about. And if you're not, then I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But this is a very exciting day and a very exciting thing to add to this 2027 class, which is off to a really good start. You got Kemon Spell, you got Kelsey Adams. Those are two guys at positions of need where Georgia's off to a pretty good start already. Noah Parker, you talked about Colquitt County earlier. I'll take a running back from Montezuma as well. So,
dude, give me Dante Wright.
Good start already. Gavin Honore, Dante Wright. Like, it's a good
number
start.
Number 3 cornerback in the nation out of.
There's work to be done, especially with the two West Coast kids they got to keep them in the class. But it's a good start for sure, considering how early in this class we are.
I like this from Parts Unknown. Spell loves me not. So exciting. Yeah. And I think Barry Waters nails it. Like, I'm excited because I lived through some terrible Georgia football days. Dude, Barry, you were there for the 2013 recruiting class. That was the class that you landed a lot of the guys you wanted, but your evaluations were so bad that most of those guys wound up transferring or not playing, and it ended Mark Richt's Georgia career. It did. I mean, 16 years out. All those guys are supposed to come in. You can't have one really bad recruiting class, and you're not going to have that with Kirby Smart. You're going to have a pretty strong one. And I think Fernando nails it here. He's like, yeah, I'm excited. When he signs, I'll jump for joy. And that's correct. So I don't know, just the defeatist attitude just drives me crazy when Georgia has shown they've got the track record of signing all these guys. I know the Caleb Downs and the Jared Curtises and the guys who switch at the last minute piss you off. But again, if it's 1 out of 5 that leaves you, you got 4. I think of some of the guys you got. Everyone got mad at Justice Terry. You got Elijah Griffin. Do you understand what he's going to be like next year? You got they didn't get David Sanders, right? The big offensive tackle winds up going to Tennessee. He missed most of his freshman year. Whereas you had Juan Gaston, Dontrell Glover, and Cortez Smith out there just body checking people. How good are they going to be in year 2? So my point is Kirby Smart wins more than he loses compared to anybody out there. His rosters are almost always the best 1 to 105 of anybody in the nation, and they do spend a lot of money. So that brings up the question. Signing day the real signing day is this Wednesday. Why did Kemon Spell commit today?
I don't know. I mean, I think when Wiltfong, national analyst Steve Wiltfong, who was all over this recruitment and had a story this morning saying he switched his pick back to Georgia, which turned out to be foreshadowing, whatever. He said that he was one of the guys who said, yeah, Penn State could be getting back in this. And a lot of that there was thought that he would flip back to Penn State, reclassify, and sign in the 26th class this Wednesday. But then he said that's died down. So it doesn't seem like he's reclassifying. I guess it's possible. That would be huge for Georgia if he did, obviously, because like you said, you signed one back in the class and all that stuff. But I don't think so, but it's worth paying attention to, at least right now. I've asked around, hadn't heard anything back yet, but it's possible, I guess. But I just think like those decisions, like it'd be so hard to do that just at the drop of a hat. And now you go from you've got a year and a half of high school left to now you're going to be on a college campus in 3 months. So I don't know. I mean, we'll pay attention to it, but I think he'll be in the 2027 class. I would guess he'd be an early enrollee just because so many of these elite guys are. But we'll see.
I mean, I could see it. The theory that was postulated to me by some other people, just like you were saying, okay, commits now, signs on Wednesday, can't be an early enrollee because classes already started a week old. But hey, wasn't it Nate Frazier that showed up in summer?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dontrell Glover too. So I mean, you can show up midway through. I think Rashawn Dinkins. Some of these guys can show up in the summer, and remember that's how it was for 50 bajillion years. I mean, hell, I remember seeing a letter the other day about guys showing up. I think it was Bobby Bowden writing to his guys showing, hey, when you show up in the 3rd week of August, be ready to go. We don't have time for you guys to get in shape. Now having guys show up like June 1st was always a big deal. Now they're here in May. So anyway, like you said, the theory was he changes his thing, shows up in the summer. Georgia does whatever it takes to get him signed. So, maybe in 48 hours, they're announcing him as a signee. I don't see it happening, but, stranger things have happened. But even if you can't get him here, you're selling him on the fact that, look, when you can come in and give up all your senior season stuff and come here and play a year early, or you can go ahead and have your senior year. And when you show up on that first day, you're the premier guy. Why did Jared Curtis flip? He wanted to be the guy day one. So
that's the thing,
as much as if I'm a Georgia fan, I want him to sign Wednesday, reclassify, just to lock him in. At the same time, what's best for him might be, or what might be able to keep him just as much as saying, look, don't come be the bench warmer in your first year when we've already got 5 running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Come be the guy that's competing with Nate Frazier and Bo Walker to be the man.
Yeah, because that's the thing is like if his college career proves him to be as good of a player as it looks like he is and will be, he's probably gone after 3 years on campus. And so do you really want to waste one of those years? Because he's going to be behind Nate Frazier. He'd be behind Chauncey Bowens. And then you've got Dowdell as your short yardage back. And so it would be tough for him to see a lot of playing time as a freshman. So, yeah, I think if you're Georgia, you will get the most out of his career if he is a guy who's a freshman in 2027 and it's 27, 28, 29, and then off to the NFL. But, we'll see. But
Or he gets here and he has he reminds me of Swift. Remember, Swift saw the field a lot, even though he had 2 fantastic running backs ahead of him.
That is very true.
So I don't know. Anyway, so that also gives us the thought about, whether or not does he the reclassification rumors. I'm glad Jed's on that. Where was there's one more comment that I wanted to. It was about the wide receiver. Where'd it go?
Oh, Amari Patterson.
Here we go. Yeah, Parts of No says, now give me wide receiver Amari Patterson to complete the set. Yeah. So what's the latest on Patterson?
Yeah, I talked to him in Georgia. He's another guy who got into town and went through the shadow of player day on Friday and went through the whole day.
Explain that real quick.
So it's, from what it seems like, it's basically guys just following players around, and I would guess that includes like whatever classes they've got and weight meetings, and I don't know exactly what the day-to-day life of a player looks like at the second, but yeah, it's as much as anything, it's players, it's recruits getting a chance to see and hear the player's perspective on these things, and Georgia does a lot of that when these guys get on campuses, having current players talk to them about their experiences, about what it's really like, because all these guys always say, yeah, Nate Frazier told me that it's really hard to be at Georgia, but it's worth it. Monroe Freeling told me it's really hard to be at Georgia, but it's worth it. So to get the player's perspective is something that Georgia values, and I think these recruits value it too. So I think it's that paired with the actual getting to live it a little bit, going to a lift or class or a meeting, whatever's going on. It's being around a player all day, building that bond, and being recruited by a lot of those guys too. So I think it's a great idea. I think when you've got these guys, especially for junior days, when all these guys their recruitments are going to the next level, right? Like they're the class that's in focus now. It's a great chance for them to get a lot better picture of what life would be like, other than, okay, I'm a junior, Georgia likes me, they think I could be a X receiver, and James Coley's a cool guy. Like, you get a lot more info when you're shadowing a player and you're getting a lot more one-on-one time with the coaches, like a lot of these guys did this weekend.
So who did Amari follow around?
If I was a good journalist, I would have asked, but I didn't, and I'm not. So I forgot to ask that. So I know Marquise Fennell from Valdosta was here 2 weeks ago, and he shouted out Jacoby White-Helton, so it could have been him. Maybe Talon Taylor, because they've showed a lot of trust in these younger guys. Someone who's been on campus. Like, I wouldn't think it'd be Isaiah Canyon, only because he hadn't been on campus that long either. But
dude, he's got to follow people around to find out where he needs to go.
yeah, exactly. So. But Amari, yeah, he was, because Kirby Smart visited him at his school on, I think, Wednesday or maybe Thursday. And so Georgia's very quickly rising up his list, and he's rising up Georgia's list as a priority guy. And I think it seems like it's Georgia and Florida, and I think Georgia's in pretty good shape, because I think you've got the pedigree. You can sell them on, hey, we've got quarterbacks in place and all this kind of stuff. And now that could change. Like, you wonder if Florida shows big steps forward for John Summerall in his first year, then you get to sell him on being the, come in and, hey, be the guy that takes us back to the next level, whatever. But I think Georgia's in a pretty good spot for Amari at this point in his recruitment. We'll see how spring visits kind of shake things up, but they're off to a good start.
I love the shadow a player. Mm-hmm. So let's say if you get there early enough, you see them get up and do their morning workout, or their, take them to that restaurant the Dogs have where they get their breakfast. Then you follow them to class. And hey, maybe you have to sit in on a class and maybe bores the hell out of you for 50 minutes, but you're like, hey, you better be prepared. Then you follow them. And let's say they get any sort of treatment, and you see them go get that, and you see them come back and have lunch, and then you see them sit in on a position meeting, then you see them have their lift, and hell, do the lift with them. But when you show up on campus, they can take you on the campus tour, and you kind of feel like an outsider. But if you're sitting there with the guy and you talk to him throughout the day, and you're walking with him from class to class, now you've spent the day as a UGA athlete, UGA student athlete. You spent the day seeing what a day in the life is like. That builds on you. So, and you got you got a really nice tour at Ohio State. You spent so much time with Ryan Day, and you went to Clemson, and they showed you around. They rolled out the red carpet, but in your mind, you know where Park Hall is. You know that you got to catch the north-south bus to get back to the Butts-Mehre building. You've got that experience. You realize, shit, I got to take a lot of notes. If I want to keep up with this. Nate Frazier's writing down all sorts of things. So. Here's how hard these workouts are in the afternoon, even though we spent all day doing this other stuff. So we talk to a lot of recruits, and after they come to watch Georgia in a game, they'll say, I could see myself out there. I could see myself playing in that defense or that offense. Okay. But if you spent 8 hours instead of 4 hours watching a game, you spent 8 hours on campus. You can see yourself as a student. And dude, my kid went through it. He and his best friend, they went to the University of North Georgia. The ROTC thing. They had a situation where, like, come up, spend the night. So you spend the night in the dorm, get up the next morning, go out to PT, go out to physical training, and then sit in on classes. And they followed a recruit around, a reserve officer training candidate, one of the cadets, for the entire day. And my son knew nothing about a military college. But when he came back, he's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay, well, there's like 4 other schools we need to look at. No, I'm going to UNG. So I'm just saying, I've seen firsthand how effective that kind of shadowing a student or shadowing a cadet or shadowing a University of Georgia athlete can do it. So, again, I'm always going to defer to the Kirby Smart roster management technique, and I think that's a damn good one. I don't know who came up with it, but I like it.
Yeah, and I think that's what that Georgia emphasizes that so much, is making sure these guys know what life is like at Georgia, because that's what spring practice is, the same thing. Like, they want to get these guys on campus to see a practice, to experience what a Georgia practice is like, so you don't show up in January and be like, man, this isn't what I signed up for at all. And this is the time in the cycle to do it, because once you get to the summer and the official visits, then that's where you're doing the the photo shoots and breakfast at Kirby's and all the stuff that's like not necessarily the real world, as far as
that's not what it's going to be like when you get here.
So from January to May or June is when all these guys that you're trying to sort out what your 2027 board looks like and who you want to prioritize. You're trying to get all of them to figure out, hey, this is what winter conditioning is like. This is what classes are like. This, in a couple months, is what practice is like. And if then by the time official visits come around, if Georgia's not for you, then you don't need to go on an official visit there. So it's a big time in the calendar, especially because so many of these guys are committing before their senior seasons. Like the cycle, the lifespan of these classes has moved up to where, official visits are your last crack at guys, and you need to show them what life is going to be like on your campus but before you get there, because like I said,
before that, right,
are not. I guarantee you these guys are not having breakfast at Kirby Smart's house every Sunday morning. Once there's
no, and that's right, because we've seen a lot of players that come to Georgia, and the practices are so hard, they transfer. They're like, I'm good. I'm good at what I do. I don't need this. I'll go somewhere else and I'll get playing time. And they transfer to Miami. They transfer to another school, and they start because they're good. But they're like, man, this practice is too much. But we're talking about Amari Patterson, the wide receiver from South Carolina. And he says the biggest takeaway was just how detailed and intense everything is, from how they run practice to how they develop guys on and off the field. Yeah, come see that intensity now. And if you're doing it on a visit weekend or on a official visits, maybe you just don't see that intensity. You see all the pomp and circumstance and all the cool shit that goes on, but you don't see just, hey, yeah, that's just a regular Monday, or that's a regular Sunday lift. And we are gauged on, it measures our downtime, it measures our loafs, and this is like a player-led, or a Scott Strickland lift. And do you see up on the data board, where it's measuring our how much energy we're expelling? This is everything we measure. So Amari Patterson, knows a hell of a lot more about Georgia than he did last time he was here. So
yeah. And Georgia doesn't hide it. I mean, credit to them. Every recruit's always, they hear Kirby Smart on the mic at practice, just like the players. Like they don't hide it when they've got recruits on campus. If the recruit, it's kind of like the fire, passion, and energy in the NIL conversation. Like if a recruit doesn't like how intense practices are, then they're probably not going to work out at Georgia anyway. So Georgia's very upfront with it, and some guys it resonates with, like Amari Patterson, and some guys it doesn't.
Tell me about a couple of the wide receivers. I mean, not wide receivers, the offensive linemen that were in town. We saw that Mark Matthews came, and then didn't Sam Apele show up?
I think so. I haven't been able to get that confirmed. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, just because he's been to Georgia so many times. To have him go without visiting in January would be surprising. He told me he's got turf toe that he's trying to stay off of. So, like, that's not good when you're a big guy. But yeah, Mark Matthews showing up. He's a 5-star. Let me check. I think he's the number 1 tackle in the class. Let me see. He's the number 2 overall player and number 1 offensive tackle. So that's a big guy to get on campus. And he's got a lot of other schools that are kind of leading the way, but you can't start to make up ground until you get a guy on campus. So that's a good start. You mentioned Jordan Agbanoma earlier. He's from Grayson, was on campus. That's a big one. Let me pull my visitor list.
Yeah, because after we had a story about Jordan today, thanks to Lance, and he basically talked about, hey, they're in my top group, and feels weird that he hadn't visited as much as some of the others, even though he's from Grayson. Grayson's been good and bad to Georgia, so yeah. I won't count any kid from Grayson or Buford same way. I won't count any kid from Grayson or Buford as a done deal, but that's a kid who's 30 minutes away, 35 minutes over at Grayson. And again, take just about any kid from Grayson because you know the quality of football they play. Just like I said with Colquitt County, I'll take any kid from Thomas County Central or Carrollton. I mean, you know the teams that play good football. So I always get Jordan's name rough. Agbanoma, that kid, he said he got to meet the new offensive line coach, Phil Rauscher. So Mark Matthews gets to meet him. Sam Apele gets to meet him. This was a huge weekend to maybe move the needle on some offensive linemen that you need. You need some tackles.
Yeah. Timmy Alou was here. JJ Brown from Parkview was here. Braylon Mills from Houston County, who's been on campus a bunch, was like, it was a lot of offensive linemen in town. And like you said, their first chance to really get some face time and get to build that relationship with Phil Rauscher. And it sounds like he's hit it out of the park with a lot of these guys. He's younger. For some reason, I thought he was an older guy. He's 39 or 40, so a bit of a younger guy. From Pennsylvania. Yeah, Jimmy Callis from Pennsylvania was there. And I think when you're Phil Rauscher, something you can sell to these guys is, I've been in the NFL, number 1, so I know what it takes to get there. I've coached guys there. And that's something that is, I'm trying to think. That's big for a lot of these kids, because what do they all say in these interviews? My ultimate goal is to get to the NFL, and now you're hearing from a guy who has been there and coached on that level. So we'll see. But yeah, like you said, you got to get some tackles in this class. They've got Kelsey Adams, which is a big start, and Sam Apele is the other one. So even if you like, I think Mark Matthews, I'd still classify as probably a long shot at this point. But even if you got Kelsey Adams and Joshua Sam Apele, that's a really good start to an offensive line class. Then you can complement it with some of these other guys that you like. But
well, I mean, if you'd asked me in October, is Kemon Spell a long shot, I'd be like, hell yeah, dude, he's from Pennsylvania, he's committed to Penn State.
Absolutely,
no chance.
Like
I
said, you can't. He
visited on his own dime this weekend.
Yeah. This is a good first step. I mean, is that St. Thomas Aquinas, which that's a school, that's an area Georgia's gotten guys from in the past. I'm trying to see who, it's Florida. Who you would expect?
Everyone expects him to go to Miami.
Miami, Ohio State. I'm sure Florida, the new staff in Florida is all over it. So it's a battle, but that's how it's going to be for a 5-star top offensive tackle. We'll see. Obviously, the relationship with the Georgia staff as a whole, anyway, with Sam Apele goes back farther. But we'll see. We'll see. You got to get him back on campus, I think, in the spring to really kind of keep the wheels moving, but we'll see.
Parts Unknown says, who did tight end Brock Williams follow around campus? Got to think he'd be lost if he followed anybody, but at the same time, Colton Heinrich, Jaden Riddell, they're very charming guys. I don't know that you could go wrong with having him follow any of those guys around. Elias Williams and Ethan Barbour are closer to real close in age. I could see any. In other words, I don't think you could go wrong. And hell, Todd Hartley looks like he's a student. Maybe he went and sat down in some of those classes and he followed Todd Hartley around for all day.
I've noticed, especially like on official visits, they have a lot of times it's the rising sophomores who are hosting guys, and I almost wonder if that's like you said, they're the closest in age. They can tell you, hey, this is what your first year on campus is going to look like. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you can't go wrong because you've got the young guys in Barbour and Williams. You got Lawson Lucky, who's seen everything. You got the guys in between in age with Riddell and Heinrich. So no bad options there. But yeah, that's another big visit because that's a guy who is supposedly thinking about committing pretty soon. So we'll see how that one shakes out.
Defensively, who was in town that we need to talk about?
Let's see. I mean, you look at Jason Witten's son, Cooper Witten. That's obviously huge. Everybody loves that 5-star linebacker who seems like he's probably going to end up at Oklahoma with his dad, but it's worth a try. Dante Wright, like you mentioned, the Georgia commit, who's a lot of West Coast schools are trying to keep him home.
Oregon's fighting hard to land him.
Jaden Aparicio Bailey is a DB I believe he's from Alabama, who is kind of like he's been on campus several times and his recruitment is kind of flying under the radar. But based on some of our national reporting, Georgia moved up his list to the top of the list. I mean, he's a guy, he's 6'2", 180 pounds out of Alabama. And that sounds like a guy, I think Georgia's recruiting him as a corner, and you give Kirby Smart a 6'2" corner, he's going to love that. So that's a big visit. Kamari Dorsey was supposed to be on campus, number 1 safety, committed to Texas A&M, but Georgia's fighting hard there. Let's see. And then you had some edge guys like Santana Harvey from Florida is an edge guy Georgia likes. Success Wabude from Athens Christian, who Georgia likes, kind of a high upside guy. Linebacker Noah Glover. And then defensive lineman Seth Tillman, who Georgia's defensive line board is really – if we're talking about actual hand in the dirt, 270-pound plus guys, it's still kind of in flux a little bit, but I think Seth Tillman is moving up toward the top of that list, and I think Georgia's really high on the list for him because he's been on campus several times now. So yeah, a lot of defensive talent on both sides of the ball, as you would expect. Peyton Bishop's another guy, an edge defensive end hybrid type that Georgia's offered and now got him on campus. So it's so funny to look at how different some of these boards of these positions look, even going back a few weeks. Peyton Bishop, you look at, I mean, obviously Kemon Spell was on the board, but we didn't think he would end up in the class necessarily this quick. Success Wabude, Peyton Bishop, Noah Glover, I believe, got offered not too long ago. So it's things are always changing, and this is the month of January is a big month for the board changing there's offers going out at every position every day.
The coaches are out on the road and they see kids. You're like, okay, we saw his tape, and I'll tell you, I'm not saying they walk in with a scale and a tape measure, but they walk in and they get to see these kids in person and how they carry themselves. And you maybe catch them at a basketball game or you catch them at a lift or something like that. There is something to seeing a kid for the first time in person on the hoof, I was like, hey, this kid's he's listed at 6'6", 330. You go see him, he's 6'2", 400. You're like, okay, now we saw his film. That's why we came to see him. His film looked good, but you get to see him in person. You're like, wow, you're not what I thought. At the same time, you're at that school and the coach at the high school is like, hey, coach, I know you're here to see player X, but I got a freshman over here who's, 6'3", runs like a deer. great grades, and he's going to be our best. We're looking to have him start a defensive end as a sophomore. You're like, okay. So now, boom, all of a sudden that kid has an offer. So yeah, it is a moving target when it comes to who's getting offers, whose offer is committable because you offered a kid, and then you're like, yeah, don't call us, we'll call you type situation.
You want to get kids on campus to work out, because another thing the staff does is place such an emphasis on in-person workouts. So yeah, this one, and then you look at like from the beginning of spring practice to like the middle of May, because then you go from Georgia's spring practice, then these high school kids have spring practice the first half of May, to where I believe coaches can go out there and see spring practice tape, all that kind of stuff. So
oh yeah, they go out and they film practice. It's funny to see a position coach
I've
out
seen
there with a little
Stacey
camcorder.
practice literally with a camcorder, exactly. Yeah, from 20 years ago. So it's like you said, it's a moving target, and we got a little bit more clarity on how the board's shaking out now, but there's still a long way to go in this class.
Yeah, I'm looking up something here real quick because I don't even remember what I reported. We broke the news and crap. Oh, the question is, have y'all heard anything about G-Day? Yes, G-Day will happen. Trying to remember. We broke the news that practice for Georgia starts March 17th, I believe. And then G-Day should be April 18th. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember. I know we put it out on Instagram and the UGASports. I guess I can look it up that way. But yeah, so, and now that there's not a second transfer portal period, some of the schools that said they wouldn't be doing spring games, they use the excuse, well, we don't want to put tape out there and have people be able to watch our spring game practice and then come after our kids. They won't be able to use that as an excuse anymore. So I'm expecting Georgia to, some of the other teams that said they wouldn't be doing it anymore will actually get back to having spring practices. But Georgia never threatened to not have spring practice. It's too much of a tradition. And honestly, I think they should monetize it. And I'm not saying, hey, charge a crazy amount of money to go to it. I'm just thinking it's a situation where it's like, look, have a meet the players thing, after it's over, let guys sign autographs for, a certain amount of like a package deal where they could, you can, what's the word? Add to the NIL coffers, if you will. So do something with it. Yeah. Spring practice, March 17th, G-Day, April 18th. So go ahead and mark that on your calendar. You remember there was a time there with the 93K day where they filled up the entire stadium. That completely boosted Kirby Smart's next two signing classes, because all those kids came and saw 93,000 people there for a spring game, and he signed the #1 class for like the next 3 years because of that. I've also seen them do it where they have they did like a food drive. They're like, hey, bring food for the Athens area food bank. And everybody brought cans of food and boxes of food, and it was fantastic. I'm like, look, interact with the fans. Now we know that they're about to launch a new NIL program where you can contribute. I think they're going to call it Glory. There's that god awful video they put out, or that Kirby Smart like answering a text from UGA. I'm like, just freaking announce it. Come on, this is stupid, but will be a new NIL portal for the fans. But I'm like, look, if you want to be able to keep a Kemon Spell, if you want to be able to go and get these top guys, you need to have the biggest, or at least a matching checkbook. And if you want to get the fans to help you with that, you have to give the fans something. This is a public university. So bring back picture day, bring back, autograph day, let people come in and get signatures, pay your players, let them know, hey, twice a year, we're going to have an event where you're going to get paid a crap ton of money. And these people can walk up and pay you directly for your autograph, or Venmo you for your autograph. And we're also, for people who want to give $10,000 or $20,000 or something, we'll give them a special experience. So I just think that G-Day could be a big help for not only us to see who, how's the offensive line going to shake out? Well, what is, who's the opposing cornerback here? How these new safeties look? A lot of the questions that we'll have going into it, but you could also have a fantastic a chance to fill your NIL coffers through experiences. So just my thought. Yeah, like this. 93K and everybody contributes $10, $1 million. That is running back for a year. Yeah. Yeah. I get it. And the question is the spring game televised? Yeah. And all the SEC schools have their spring games televised. So here's a good question for you. We'll end on this one. Larry Hogue Jr., a good friend of the show, says, how's the 2026 class tracking compared to the 2025 and 2024 as the quality and quantity of whom we are after? Well, you've signed your 2026 class.
Yeah, assuming he means like
let's look at how do they end up?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about the 2026 class, I mean, like I said earlier, they got 6 guys in the top 100, which I didn't see how that compares to, but I would imagine it's pretty high up there. 16 guys in the top 300, and it's spread out like, you look at, let's see, let me find where I wrote that down earlier. Like of your 6 guys in the top 100, you got a tackle, offensive tackle, a receiver, a tight end, an edge guy, and 2 DBs. And then you look at, you got like let's see, 1, 2, you got 5 DBs in the top 300, which that's a position Georgia needed to hit on. You got your quarterback in the top 300 with Bryson Beaver, who I still forget ended up in this class somehow. You got Tyreek Jemison, another offensive. They hit on the positions they needed to hit on. What you needed defensive backs, you needed some defensive linemen to restock, and you needed some interior offensive linemen. And now it's the next class where you go get some tackles. So, I think that's kind of how, like, some of this roster building stuff is. You're going to have to figure it out class by class. Is, hey, okay, this class we're going to have to put more money in the receiver pool than last year. We're going to have to put more money in the defensive back pool than the linebacker pool, whatever, because that's how it's going to work. You can't have these classes where you're just going to spend a ridiculous amount of money across the board every time. You got to pick and choose your top spots. And sometimes somebody in the vault made a good point today with the 2027 class. If Jaden Wade stays in 2028, if you don't take a quarterback, if you take a developmental quarterback, whatever, if you don't spend a lot or any money on a quarterback, then that's more money that you could spread around elsewhere. So like all these are decisions that, that's why you see so many schools hiring general managers, president of football operations, whatever, to take that off the head coach's plate. Now, Kirby Smart hadn't done that. He likes being more involved in it himself, and it's working pretty good. But the calculus is a lot different, and I think it changes class by class because, like this last class, Georgia they went after one guy at edge. They got Kamari Brooks as their edge guy, and that's it. Whereas this class, it's okay, we're going to have to load up a lot more. We're going to go after a David Jacobs. We're going to go after a Justin Weeks, a Santana Harvey, I don't know, some of these other guys, Success Wabude. Desmond Malpress is a guy that got offered and was on campus for the last junior day. So it's going to change every class which position is going to be focused on and which position is going to get more money dumped into it. But look at this, like Georgia, is this 26 you've got pulled up right now, Riley?
26. That's
Georgia, like USC and Notre Dame had 17 guys in the top 100 or top 300, excuse me. Georgia had 16. So now I think where you look at it, Georgia had 1 5-star, which this is is this the Rivals rankings or is this the industry rankings?
I think this is the industry.
Okay, so industry, I think Caden Protho ended up a 5-star. The Rivals rankings, Akani Agboko was a 5-star. But so I think that's where I think that's where a lot of fans are worried because you look at that's the column that everybody looks at first is how many 5 stars did Georgia get? Georgia got one. Um, and I think you might have to I don't want to say adjust your expectations because that sounds like Georgia's not going to recruit well, and they obviously are, but
Well,
these
let me point this out real quick. Ohio
trending
State had 2 5 stars and 16 4 stars. Georgia had 1 5 star and 20 4 stars.
mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I don't know. I mean, 1 5 star can absolutely change the outcome, but I'm just saying if you have 4 more 4 stars, that's pretty damn good. And the difference is, from third to sixth. Just, USC has 24 stars. Georgia has 24 stars. They got 1 extra 5 star, and boom, they're the number 1 class. So, anyway, it's you're splitting hairs there. And just in case the gentleman was asking maybe about the 2027 class, Georgia has 6 commits, and they are ranked number 2 right now with a pretty strong class. So the 2027 class is starting off getting the number 1 running back in the nation. We started with Kemon Spell. What that does is it gives you momentum with the other guys. Then all of a sudden, maybe your Brock Williams is like, oh, okay. I'm a tight end. I know I got a good running back. Okay.
I forget. I saw another 27 guy. I forget who it was, but quote tweeted his commitment graphic and like Spells from Pennsylvania and this kid was from Florida or Tennessee. Like they shouldn't know each other very well, but that kind of stuff. It's the same thing with Jaden Wade. That draws attention. Brock Williams draws attention. Then you start recruiting in guys on top of it. So yeah, it's big on the field. It's big off the field. It's all this kind of stuff. It's a big day, whether fans want to be excited about it or want to worry about what the next 10, 11 months will bring. It's a big
Larry was talking about the 2027 class, so we gave him a little extra there. So.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is because I think I can pull up the receiver rankings, but I remember at one point I pulled up receiver. This must have been 26 class, and of the top 20 receivers, Georgia was involved with 3 of them, was in pretty deep. And I think that's a position where you talk about the fire, passion, energy. You guys love the game, whatever. I think that's one where Georgia's looking for it because receiver, and we've seen it with Cam Coleman. We've seen it with all these guys in the portal and out of high school. That's one where you can get in a ridiculous bidding war really fast.
Yeah.
And I think Georgia's determined not to do that. I mean, you look at the top guys here. The first guy on this list that I would say Georgia's got a realistic chance with, Khalil Taylor is ranked 12th. He visited last weekend. That's another former Penn State commit. Anthony Jennings, 17th. Georgia offered him not long ago. There's Georgia, I think, is picking and choosing its spots at receiver and trying to find. But you look at Craig Dandridge at this time last year was unranked, maybe a little 3-star, didn't any offers, and he ended up top 100 in the country. So that's a position where it seems like Georgia is really trusting its evaluations and finding those guys who you're not going to get in a bidding war with and have that fire, passion, and energy, whatever. So that's another spot where, and Amari Patterson is emerging as one of those guys as an example. So,
I'm going to throw a stick in the spokes here, because as much as I will defend our rankings against anybody, did you watch Coach Don on our show last Tuesday? I mentioned the summation of the 2026 class, because I think that was the exact same day that we had our show last Tuesday. Was the day you wrote the final 2026 rankings are out, and you wrote that list. He wanted to know where Zyke Helton was. I'm like, Coach, he's not in he's like, where'd y'all have him? 15, 16? I'm like, not in the top 100. He goes, well, where is he? I'm like, not in the top 300. He ragged us for a solid hour. He kept bringing it up. We didn't have Zyke Helton in the top 300. So you got to take all these rankings with a grain of salt, because Coach Donna was just, oh my God, I was so embarrassed. He was he was filleting us. It was brutal. He's like, I'm telling you, he can play. I'm like, I know he can, coach. That's one of my favorite kids in the whole damn class. So, but again, that was a kid who, even if he didn't wind up in the finals, you saw him in the state championship. My God.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, all right, that's all the time. We got to break up the show here. We got to run, but I do appreciate everybody with their comments here. Thanks, Larry, Paul Ringer, Tony Huff. Parts Unknown, of course, thank you for the super chats. Parts Unknown, those are always very well appreciated. I need to mention it more because it really does help us. David, Gary, Randy Powers joining us too, Francisco and JC. We appreciate all of you being a part of the show. And tomorrow we have Coach Donnan on at noon, so join us then. And, of course, next Monday at the same bat time, same bat channel, we'll have Jed on to kind of wrap up the weekend recruiting. The Dogs are off on a big start from this past weekend, which I said was a loaded Junior Day weekend. And maybe this time next week we're talking about another edition. So we will see you then. Y'all take care.